Michigan Republican Mike Rogers is the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, and he joins me now. Chairman, good morning. Good to have you back again.
Good morning,
on the
Martha.
program.
Thanks for having me.
You know, he raises an issue in this in terms of what the president was doing during and after this attack. Because there have been questions. Liz Cheney was on with us the other day, and she said, I want to know, was the president up all night while this drone was showing what was going on the ground there, minute by minute? Was Hillary Clinton up all night watching this? Do you expect that any answers will come from the White House for Speaker Boehner?
Well, I hope so, Martha. I mean, you think about this. They've had a long list of people they've tried to assign blame to, and it got longer, including the Romney campaign about this particular event, and they've even blamed the fog of war. I think the president coming out and having an honest discussion with the American people can remove the fog of politics that have surrounded this whole event. And why that's so important is we've got intelligence officials, military special operators around the world, diplomats and their employees at the embassies looking back and hoping America is standing with them. And it is really hard to come to that conclusion, and that's the case, given the confusion and just the deafening silence on this particular issue. We have had 2 terrorist attacks on embassies, one on the 11th, one on the 13th in Tunisia, and no discussion by the president to try to set the record straight and refocus those individuals on what the real threat is, and that's al-Qaeda. So this November 6th needs to be taken off the table for the president. He needs to show U.S. leadership a commitment to the folks who are risking their lives for the country and send a very clear signal to al-Qaeda, wherever they find you, we will not tolerate this anywhere in the world. Yeah,
you bring up such a significant point, because people, might think when they just hear this here and there that it's about, hammering the White House and their reaction because we're in election season. But I think that it is deeper than that, and you just touched on that. And that's the question of how strong is al-Qaeda in this region? What do we need to be aware of in terms of what their actions tell us about their strength there? Now, November 15th, the Senate Intelligence Committee has announced that they're going to hold a closed hearing. What do we know about that? Who do we expect will be questioned in that closed hearing? Do we have any information?
We've had some preliminary discussions. I think you'll see the host of intelligence officials that would be in line with the jurisdiction of the committee. And that's good, and it should happen. We've already, on the House committee, engaged in a review of all the materials. So we've requested and received security cables leading up to the event and subsequent to the event.
Would that include, pardon my interruption, but would that include James Clapper or Leon Panetta or Mr. Brennan from the White House? Would those people be on that list?
Well, I think Mr. Brennan should show up. I'm not sure he will. As a National Security Council member, they very rarely will be called in to testify. They're supposed to be advisors to the president, and there's always been a discussion about why that's important. But here's the other part of this, Martha, that doesn't get talked about. So that's important to hear. We need to get the bottom of it. American ambassador dead. America deserves the truth. But I'll tell you, the 9/11 Commission, right after the first 9/11 event killed 3,000 Americans, one of the catalysts that they talked about, that's why we need to remove this fog of politics from this, was that on December in 2000, when the USS Cole was struck and over a dozen U.S. sailors killed in a terrorist attack by Osama bin Laden, the United States never responded. And what they said was, because of that, al-Qaeda felt emboldened. They didn't feel that there would be any repercussion from engaging in more and bigger attacks. And of course, we know what happened in 2001 on 9/11, a bigger, bolder attack. It is really important we get to the bottom of this and send a very clear message. And it is confusing now. The information is flying over the transom to both my committee and I know the Government Oversight Committee. Professional intelligence officials and diplomats are coming forward saying, hey, this is not right. We've got to get this right.
Yeah. I want to play just a quick little bit of sound and get your reaction. This is from Charles Woods, Tyrone Woods' father. Listen to this.
It was not a sincere, I'm really sorry, that your son died, but it was a totally insincere, more of a whining type, I'm sorry. And it was like just shaking hands with a dead fish. Well, this is what Hillary did. She came over and, she did the same thing, separately came over to and talked with me. I gave her a hug, shook her hand, and she did not appear to be one bit sincere at all.
This is just one man's take. His son was killed in that attack. I'm just curious your reaction to what he said.
Well, it's unfortunate. I'm sorry he feels that way, and I'm frustrated with the Commander-in-Chief for not living up to his duty and obligation to comfort the families that you have put in harm's way. That is one of the key things that you have to do. If you're going to ask people to go into harm's way and ultimately give their life for their country, the least that can happen is the right amount of emotion and condolence to try to comfort that family that that person did not die in vain. And it's always hard to hear those stories. Every member of Congress that I know who has attended funerals of those who have been killed in action in their own districts, it's a hard thing to do. I'm not saying it's easy, but it is an easy thing to do to show the true emotion about what that person has given for their country and the sacrifice not only of the individual, but their family, who has lost so much and have a permanent scar in the cost of freedom. And it's disappointing to hear that both were insincere like that, and I just tell you, it sends a horrible message to the people who are risking their lives all over the world.
And most of the families have not spoken out about that day at Andrews, and this man said he was only compelled to when he learned that the drone had watched it all play out, and who knows what's in the hearts and minds of the president or Hillary Clinton. It is simply to put out there what this man's reaction to all of that was, and that's why we say that. Congressman Rogers, great to speak with you again. We'll talk to you again soon on this, I hope. Thank you, sir.
I hope so.